Winter was ruthless in Boston that Christmas Eve. Heavy snowflakes blanketed the frozen sidewalks, while the warm scent of fresh bread drifted from a small bakery in the North End. Inside, a woman stood trembling at the counter, clutching 3 tiny coins. Emily Carter, 35, a single mother, fought against the pride that kept her from begging. At her side, her 8-year-old twin daughters, Sophie and Grace, squeezed her hand, their innocent eyes shining with hunger. Emily took a deep breath. She'd spent the day cleaning office buildings, but with her pay delayed, her pockets were nearly empty. The bread cost $4. She only had 3. The baker, Mr. Jenkins, shook his head regretfully. "I'm sorry, Emily. I wish I could help. But I just can't today." Emily forced a sad smile, fighting back tears. She was about to leave empty-handed, dreading how she'd explain to her daughters there would be no dinner. But just as she turned to face the icy street, a well-dressed man, wrapped in a thick grey wool coat, stepped into the bakery. The cold didn't seem to touch him, yet his blue eyes carried a deep sadness. Michael Donovan, the owner of a multi-million-dollar luxury hotel chain, noticed the humble mother trembling with hunger and dignity, and something inside him stirred. At that moment, he had no way of knowing that by reaching out to this woman, he wouldn't just save her life, he would end up saving his own too. The icy wind whipped down Salem Street, rattling the old bakery sign like a scrap of paper. Emily took a deep breath before pulling her daughters by the hand, trying to smile to hide her shame. Sophie and Grace, still clinging to their worn-out teddy bear, stared longingly at the counter, where the golden loaves sent out a warm, almost cruel aroma. "Mom, will we have bread today?" Grace whispered, her delicate voice nearly lost in the frozen air. Emily felt her chest tighten. "Mommy will figure it out, sweetheart," she said, clutching her threadbare scarf around her neck, fighting back tears. At the counter, Mr. Jenkins arranged fresh trays of bread, casting sympathetic looks their way. He had known Emily since the twins were born. He'd seen her work like a lioness, cleaning houses, washing dishes, caring for the elderly. And still, life always seemed to deny her the bare minimum. "Emily, if you want, you can pay me later," he offered gently, but she shook her head. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, but I don't want to owe anyone." Her dignity spoke louder than her hunger, just as it always had. That was when the bakery door creaked open again, its hinges groaning against the wooden floor. A tall, elegant man stepped inside, wearing a flawless overcoat and gleaming shoes, brushing snow off his shoulders. His eyes cut through the room like a blade until they settled on Emily and her daughters. He paused for a moment, as if absorbing every detail of the scene: the girls' tiny hands, the exhaustion on their mother's face, the courage in her eyes. Michael Donovan stepped up to the counter without looking away from Emily. His presence, steady and self-assured, felt out of place in such a humble shop. "How much for the bread?" he asked in a deep voice. $4, Mr. Jenkins replied, surprised. Michael pulled a $50 bill from his pocket and placed it on the counter. "I want this lady to have bread and anything else she needs to feed these girls." Emily's eyes went wide, confused. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't ask for charity." Michael tilted his head slightly, offering a gentle but bittersweet smile. "Consider it a Christmas gift, ma'am. Sometimes miracles start with small acts of kindness." Grace clung even tighter to her mother's arm. Emily felt her pride tremble, but looking at her daughters, pale and hungry, she couldn't refuse. "Thank you. Truly," she murmured, her voice choked with emotion. Michael just nodded, as if it was nothing. But inside, something shifted the moment he saw the tears of relief in Emily's eyes. Outside, the wind howled down the street, and the snow kept falling, thick and almost magical. As Emily left the bakery, now with a full bag and a heart in shock, Michael stood there, staring at the door closing behind her. He couldn't quite explain why this humble, broken yet incredibly strong mother had touched him so deeply. But he knew he had to find out. Have you ever met someone who awakened something inside you that you didn't even know was there? Drop a comment below, and don't miss the next chapter. The snow was still swirling under the faint glow of the streetlights when Emily arrived at her tiny apartment in the Boston suburbs. The twins, starving, ran straight to the little wooden table the moment they smelled the fresh bread. Emily set the bag down on the makeshift counter of her cramped kitchen, letting out a heavy sigh. "Mommy, was he an angel?" Sophie asked, biting into the soft bread, her eyes shining. Emily smiled through her exhaustion. "No, sweetheart, he was just a generous man." "Will we see him again?" Grace ventured. Emily shook her head, not wanting to give them false hope. "Probably not. People like him live in a different world." As the girls devoured their simple dinner, Emily sat at the table and stared at the stack of overdue bills, water, electricity, gas, all piling up. Even working 3 jobs, she couldn't keep her head above water. Michael's gesture had been a relief, but it didn't change her reality. That same night, across the city, Michael Donovan lay awake in his penthouse loft, staring at the ceiling. The image of the woman in the worn scarf and her hungry daughters haunted him. There was something in those brave eyes that had shaken him in a way he couldn't quite explain. He grabbed his phone and called his assistant. "Jake, I need a report on a woman named Emily Carter. She lives in the North End. Find out everything you can." "Sir, is everything okay?" Michael took a deep breath. "I don't know. Just do it." The next morning, Emily trudged through the snow to the office building where she cleaned rooms. Her body ached, her hands cracked from the cold, but she held her head high. She greeted the receptionist with her usual gentle smile and went straight to the locker where she kept her cleaning uniform. Before she could even get started, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned, startled, to see Jake, Michael's assistant, holding out a business card. "Sorry to bother you, Miss Carter. I'm Jake Harrison from the Donovan Group." "From what?" Emily's eyes widened, confused. "My boss, Michael Donovan, asked to meet you. He'd like to speak in person." Emily stepped back, suspicious. "About what?" "I don't owe him anything." Jake gave a patient smile. "He just wants to talk. Please, come with me." Emily looked around, unsure what to do. If it had been any other man, she might have been afraid. But something in Michael's eyes at the bakery had made her believe he meant no harm. She grabbed her bag, took a deep breath, and followed Jake. Half an hour later, Emily was sitting in a huge glass-walled conference room overlooking the Boston harbor. She felt tiny in that imposing space. Michael walked in shortly after, carrying the same elegant air, but with a serious expression. "Emily," he said, taking a seat across from her, "thank you for coming." "Beast, I didn't really have much choice, did I?" She shot back, defensive. Michael gave a faint smile. "You have every choice. You can leave any time." She crossed her arms, standing her ground. "Then say what you have to say. Why am I here?" Michael took a deep breath. "Yesterday, when I saw you and your daughters, something inside me shifted. I couldn't sleep thinking about you." Emily blushed. "I don't need charity." "This isn't charity," he insisted. "It's an opportunity." She raised an eyebrow. "Opportunity? What kind?" Michael leaned forward, his eyes filled with seriousness. "Next month I'm opening a new hotel here in Boston, a hotel that wants to be different, human, welcoming. I want you to oversee the housekeeping team, supervise cleaning, room service, organization. It's a real job, well paid." Emily felt her knees go weak. "Sorry. What? Me? Manage a hotel? I'm just a cleaning lady." Michael shook his head, confident. "You're not just anything. You're a hard-working mother who manages 3 jobs and still raises 2 wonderful girls. That's the kind of person I need." She took a shaky breath, trying to process his words. "And how much would it pay?" Michael didn't hesitate. $3,000 a month, plus room and board at the hotel, meals, health insurance, vacation time. Emily felt the world spin. That's more than I make in 6 months." Michael leaned his elbows on the table, steady. "Say yes, Emily. Not for me, for your daughters." She lowered her gaze, her heart racing. Sophie and Grace deserved this, but something inside her screamed caution. "Why me? Why help someone you don't even know?" Michael sighed, looking her straight in the eye. "Because maybe I need you just as much as you need this chance." Emily swallowed hard. The weight of those words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Would she have the courage to say yes? Emily stepped out of the glass building on shaky legs, clutching her worn-out purse tight against her chest. The freezing wind seemed to rip the air from her lungs as she tried to process everything she had just heard. $3,000 a month. A new home. Security for her daughters. It felt like a dream, or maybe a trap. When she got home, she found Sophie and Grace playing on the threadbare rug in the living room. They ran to her with eyes full of hope. "Mom, are you okay?" Grace asked. Noticing her mother's confused expression, Emily took a deep breath, kneeling in front of them. I was offered a job that could change our lives." "Then say yes, Mommy," Sophie shouted, jumping with excitement. Emily smiled, but the worry didn't leave her face. Sweethearts, sometimes things that seem too good to be true really are. Grace cupped her mother's face with her cold little hands. "But what if it is true?" That night, Emily could hardly sleep. Her mind raced with worries that Michael might have hidden motives. She'd heard stories of rich men taking advantage of desperate women and then tossing them aside. But whenever she remembered the look in his eyes at the bakery, she saw something different: sincerity, maybe even loneliness. The harsh ring of her alarm broke the heavy silence at 5:30 a.m. Emily got up to make a thin pot of coffee, thinking about her daughter's future. She couldn't keep letting them go hungry or live in that moldy apartment. She had to take a chance. That afternoon, after cleaning offices all day, she took the subway to the hotel under construction in downtown Boston. Michael was waiting in the makeshift lobby, wearing that same perfect grey overcoat. When he saw her arrive, he gave a restrained smile. "Emily, I'm glad you came." She took a steadying breath. I haven't accepted yet," Michael nodded respectfully. "If you'd like, I can show you around, so you can make your decision with a clear mind." They walked through dusty hallways that smelled of fresh paint, Michael explaining every detail with surprising excitement. "I want this hotel to be more than just luxury. I want people to feel welcomed, to never go through what I went through." Emily frowned. "What did you go through?" Michael hesitated, staring at the floor. Loneliness. His honesty caught her off guard. Emily looked at him for the first time without fear. "You seem like you have everything." Michael let out a brief, bitter laugh. "Everything except someone who truly cares." When they reached a spacious suite, Michael turned to her, completely serious. "You'd have an apartment just like this one, safe, warm, for you and your daughters." Emily looked around in disbelief. The high ceilings, the brand-new furniture, the view over the Charles River. It was like another world. "This is a lot," she murmured. Michael stepped closer without invading her space, locking eyes with her. "Emily, I don't want anything from you except your work. And if I can say this, your honest heart. That's what I need for this project." Emily felt tears burn her eyes. He seemed genuine. For the first time in so long, a spark of hope began to glow inside her. "If I accept," she started. Michael gently interrupted. "You'll have my word of respect and my support to rebuild your life." In that moment, Emily could see a future for the first time. Her daughters smiling, sleeping peacefully, eating without fear of tomorrow. The fear still pulsed in her chest, but courage finally won out. "Okay," she said, taking a deep breath. "I accept." Michael broke into a wide, relieved smile. "You won't regret it." Deep down, Emily still wasn't sure if she could trust him completely. But she had no choice. She had to fight for Sophie and Grace. Little did she know that this decision would change far more than just her address. It would change her destiny. The winter sun peeked shyly over Boston as Emily got up before her daughters, her stomach twisting with anxiety. It was her first day at the new job. She looked at the girls, still curled up under the same blanket, and felt a wave of courage. She had to make this work, for them. The hotel's team van arrived right on time at 7 a.m. to pick her up. Emily pulled her simple coat tighter around her body and helped Sophie and Grace climb into the back, where a spot was reserved to take them to the hotel's daycare. Michael had insisted on that to give her peace of mind. When Emily stepped into the still unfinished lobby, her heart raced. Businessmen in suits bustled back and forth, workers drilled into walls, managers argued in loud voices. She clutched her bag like a shield. "Emily!" Michael called, walking toward her with that same elegant, determined air. "Did you sleep well?" She took a deep breath, trying to smile. "I think so. I'm still a bit scared." Michael nodded, understanding. "That's normal, but you're going to do better than you think." He guided her through the hotel's corridors, pointing out the service areas, private elevators, and housekeeping offices. Emily tried to absorb everything, mentally taking note of every detail. "I want you to coordinate the entire housekeeping team," Michael explained. "We have 20 employees confirmed, but they're feeling insecure. You'll need to motivate them." "Motivate?" Emily's eyes widened. "I've never managed people before. I've only ever cleaned." Michael stopped and looked her straight in the eye. "You've been managing the lives of 2 kids on your own, Emily. That counts more than any degree." A little later, Emily was introduced to her team. Tired faces, some skeptical seeing a simple woman in charge. One employee raised an eyebrow. "Do you have any 5-star hotel experience?" Emily took a deep breath, feeling her blood heat up. "I have experience with dignity, with respect. And I know how to clean, coordinate, and solve problems. If you give me a chance, I'll give you one too." An awkward silence settled over the room until an older woman with a kind face smiled and stepped forward. "My name's Rose. You can count on me." Emily shook her hand, relieved. "Thank you, Rose." As Emily went downstairs to organize the first test rooms, Michael watched from the mezzanine above. Jake, his assistant, walked over. "Are you sure about her, sir?" Michael kept his eyes on Emily. "Absolutely." Jake scratched his head, hesitant. "She seems a bit green." "That's exactly why she's perfect. She doesn't have the bad habits of luxury hotels. She'll bring authenticity." Hours later, Emily was already supervising the team, giving clear instructions, helping fold sheets, checking the tiniest details in the suites. It was like she was born for it. Rose came over, impressed. "Emily, you really have a knack for this." She smiled, exhausted but hopeful. "Thank you. I'm just trying to do it right." "You're already doing it right, sweetheart," Rose praised. "The rest we'll learn together." At the end of the day, Michael came back to find her in the laundry room, going over a makeshift spreadsheet. He smiled, seeing how dedicated she was. "Emily, go rest. Tomorrow will be even tougher. I'd like to finish this first, sir. Michael pulled up a chair and sat next to her, surprising her. Can I help? Emily looked at him, embarrassed. You? Help count towels? Michael laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in weeks. I've never counted towels in my life, but I can learn. She couldn't help but smile, feeling the weight of the day lift. If you want to learn, I can teach you. They worked together late into the evening, sharing stories, laughing about the challenges. Emily told him about the twins, how Grace was afraid of thunder and Sophie loved to dance. Michael listened closely, as if every word was precious. When she finally stood to leave, he stepped closer, his eyes sincere. Emily, don't let anyone make you feel small here. You belong in this place. She felt tears threatening, but took a deep breath. Thank you, Michael. Really. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering Boston in white like a brand new beginning. Emily had no idea the biggest challenge was still to come, and that her heart would be tested like never before. Have you ever had a boss who believed in you when no one else did? Share your story in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. The hotel was almost ready for its grand opening. Emily already knew every hallway by heart, the radio codes, the stock inventory, even the quirks of the VIP guests who had started making early reservations. Sophie and Grace were happily attending the hotel's daycare, wearing brand new uniforms Michael had arranged for them. One cold afternoon, Emily stepped out of the staff locker room, hugging her clipboard to her chest, and found Michael standing in the hallway. He looked worried, his face serious, his eyes darker than ever. Emily, do you have a minute? Of course, sir. Michael led her into an empty meeting room. Emily felt her heart start to race. Is something wrong? Yes. And I thought you should be the first to know. Emily pressed her lips together. Tell me. Michael rubbed his hands nervously, something she'd never seen him do. I got a call this morning from the board of directors. They came to review the hotel's numbers. And they think I'm spending too much, that the project won't be profitable. Emily's eyes went wide. But the bookings are full. That's what you told me. They are, he confirmed, but they don't care about bookings yet. They just want to cut costs, immediately. Emily took a deep breath, her chest tightening. What does that mean? Michael looked straight into her eyes, serious. It means if I don't cut nearly half the staff, including you, they're going to remove me from the project. Emily trembled, swallowing hard. Half the staff? Michael, these people depend on these jobs. I know, he lowered his head. That's why I'm telling you first. I don't want to make this decision without you. Emily leaned against the wall, her head pounding. Why involve me? I'm just an employee. Michael shook his head firmly. You're not just an employee, Emily. You transformed this place. You gave this hotel a soul. I need you. She looked away, overwhelmed. Michael, I don't even know what to say. Help me think of another solution, he pleaded. If there's anyone who can save these families, it's you. Emily took a long breath, running her hand through her hair. The only way to avoid layoffs would be to boost occupancy even more, get more bookings, prove this project is worth keeping. Michael looked at her, hope shining in his eyes. Do you think you can do it? She bit her lip, thinking hard. I can't promise a miracle, but I can try. That night, Emily gathered the entire team in the staff break room. Nervous whispers filled the air. Word about layoffs had already spread. Emily climbed onto a makeshift chair, holding up her clipboard like a battle flag. Everyone listen up, she called out, firm and clear. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But if we stick together, if we make every guest feel so special they'll tell the whole world, we can save these jobs." Rose, the older employee with the kind face, nodded. "Emily, you've changed the way we work. I'm with you." Others followed, one by one. "Me too. Count me in." Emily felt a wave of pride and courage wash over her. She glanced at Michael, who stood by the door, tears in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, he realized he wasn't alone. In the middle of the night, Emily walked the halls in silence, checking every detail before the opening event. Michael approached, a soft smile on his face. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "You're not just the head housekeeper, Emily. You're my partner." Emily blinked in surprise. "Partner?" "Yes," Michael confirmed. "If I have to fight the board, I want you at my side." She looked down, her heart racing. I don't know if I'm that strong." Michael reached out his hand steady. "I know you are." At that moment, something clicked inside Emily. The poor girl who once couldn't afford bread was now leading an entire team and had the trust of a millionaire. But fate rarely shows mercy, and soon another blow would come to shake all their hopes. Have you ever had a boss who believed in you when nobody else did? Share your story in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. The hotel's grand opening arrived like a storm. The lights, the floral arrangements, the scent of polished floors mixing with expensive perfume filled the lobby. Emily wore a simple suit borrowed from Rose, trying her best to look confident. The twins were at the hotel's daycare, wide-eyed and amazed by all the excitement. Emily supervised every detail, greeting guests, guiding staff, jotting down complaints. Her energy was electric. Michael watched her from afar, proud. Suddenly, a tall man in a dark blue suit approached Michael, his gaze cold and calculating. "Michael, can we talk?" "Of course, Mr. Hartman." Emily heard the name without meaning to. The president of the board. They stepped a few feet away, but not far enough to keep Emily from overhearing. "You're playing hotel manager, Michael. This event cost more than the entire quarterly budget. The results will come. It just needs time." "Time? You've already exceeded every limit. If you don't cut staff by next week, you'll lose controlling shares." Michael took a deep breath, visibly shaken. Emily hugged her clipboard to her chest, her stomach twisting. If he lost control, the whole project would collapse, including her job. Hours later, at the end of the party, Michael found her near the staff kitchen, exhausted. "Can we talk?" Emily nodded, tense. They stepped into the storage room, away from curious eyes. "I know you heard," he said, his voice cracking. "I did," Emily admitted, staring at the floor. "Are they taking the project away from you?" Michael shook his head bitterly. "Unless I make deep cuts." "And will you?" He looked at her intensely. "I don't want to, but I don't know what else to do." Emily fought back tears, a stab of fear in her chest. "If you have to fire me, I'll understand." Michael stepped closer, outraged. "No, Emily, I would never fire you. You're the reason this place even works." Michael, I don't want to be a burden." "You are not a burden," he insisted, gently touching her arm. "You are my strength." A heavy silence fell between them. Emily was breathing fast, her heart pounding. "I just want to protect my daughters," she murmured. "And I just want to protect you," he replied, in such a sincere tone it made Emily tremble. "So what do we do now?" she asked. Michael ran a frustrated hand through his hair. "I was thinking, if I walked away from the group and started over, without the shareholders, I could save you, and everyone." Emily's eyes went wide. "Michael, you'd walk away from your family's empire? What's the point of an empire if it means nothing?" Emily felt the floor sway under her feet. That's crazy. Michael took her hands firmly, looking so close she could smell his elegant cologne. Crazy would be standing by while they destroy everything we built together. We built? She repeated, emotional. Yes, Emily, you and me. She swallowed hard, a lump in her throat. And if it doesn't work? Michael took a deep breath. Then we fall together. But at least we'll fall with our heads held high. Emily's eyes drifted to the hotel's glass doors, where her daughters were laughing, playing with a friendly waiter. She thought of everything they had suffered, and everything they still might achieve. Michael, I don't know. Trust me, he interrupted, gently cupping her face. Trust me. Emily finally let the tears fall. Okay, I trust you. The next morning, Emily woke earlier than ever. The cold seemed to cut through her bones, but her mind was buzzing with ideas. If they were going to start over, they'd need allies. They'd need courage. When she walked into the hotel, she found Michael gathered with part of the team. He looked at her like she was a safe harbor. Emily, he called, ready to start our revolution. She took a deep breath, straightening her uniform. Ready. They had no idea they were about to face the biggest battle of their lives, and maybe discover that the greatest wealth of all is trust. Have you ever faced a moment where everything seemed to collapse, but you found the courage to start again? Share your story in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Emily barely slept that night. The idea of walking away from what Michael had called an empire was terrifying. How could someone so powerful be willing to throw it all away just because he believed in her? It made her feel honored, but also terrified. At their makeshift breakfast, Sophie and Grace perched on top of moving boxes, since the hotel daycare hadn't reopened after the event. Mommy, are we going to live here forever? Sophie asked, taking a bite of bread. Emily stroked her daughter's hair, trying to smile. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but I'll do everything I can to keep us safe. Grace looked at her seriously. That man, Michael, is he a good person? Emily took a deep breath. He's trying to be, and so am I. Later that day, in a temporary office, Michael gathered Emily and Jake, his loyal assistant. On the table lay a stack of spreadsheets with terrifying numbers. If I leave the holding company, Michael explained, they'll block my cards, cut off funding, freeze my accounts. Emily's eyes went wide. And how will you pay salaries, the rent? Michael sighed. I'll use what's left of my personal savings, but that will last maybe 3 months. Jake, scratching his beard, jumped in. Michael, I'm sorry, but you'll go bankrupt. Michael looked at him steady. If that's the price to keep the people who trust me, I'll pay it. Emily felt a chill down her spine. That's a huge responsibility. I know, Michael said softly, meeting her eyes. But I can't abandon you. At the end of the meeting, Emily pulled him aside, anxious. Michael, are you sure? He took a deep breath. There's no such thing as sure, Emily. There's only courage. She bit her lip, worried. And what if I let you down? Michael gave her a sincere smile. Emily, you've already saved me, even if you don't see it. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the city in a strange quiet. Emily stood there, watching the construction machinery on the street, trying to convince herself this wasn't a nightmare. Suddenly, she felt someone at her side. It was Rose, the most experienced worker, holding a bag of bread. Everything okay, dear? Emily took a deep breath, nearly breaking down. Rose, what if we lose everything? Rose squeezed her shoulder. Emily, you've already lost everything before, and you're still standing. That means you'll handle it again. Emily smiled, emotional. Thank you, Rose. Now go out there and show them who's boss. Michael spent the entire day on the phone convincing suppliers, partners, and old contacts to stand by him in this new chapter. Emily helped him, checking employee lists, reviewing shifts and schedules, while Sophie and Grace drew hearts on a notepad beside the desk. "Ready?" Emily asked Michael at the end of the day. He took a deep breath, taking her hand. "I've never been more ready." That night, they gathered the entire team in the still unfinished ballroom. Michael climbed onto a makeshift stage and looked at each one of them. "Everyone," he began, voice steady, "I can't promise you stability or security, but I can promise honesty and respect. Whoever wants to come with me, know we're starting from zero. There won't be a millionaire here, just a team." The staff exchanged uneasy looks. A few stepped back, heads down. Others raised their hands bravely. Rose was the first. "I'm in." Then a young waiter. "Me too." Emily, shaking, squeezed Michael's hand. "And I'm with you." Michael smiled, his eyes shining with tears he refused to let fall. "Thank you, Emily." At the back of the ballroom, Sophie and Grace ran up to their mother, hugging her legs. "Are we going to be okay, Mommy?" Emily knelt down, looking straight into their eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. Because now we're stronger than ever." The first step was taken, but starting over would be far harder than any of them could ever imagine. The old neon sign of the Donovan Hotel went dark on a cold night, without ceremony. For Michael, it felt like turning off a part of his own soul. He stood on the sidewalk, watching the lights fade, feeling the weight of his decision. A man giving up everything he had to save people who might never get another chance. Emily approached, holding her daughter's hands. "Are you ready for this?" she asked gently. Michael took a deep breath. "I don't know, Emily, but there's no going back." "Now, then we'll go together," she said, pulling her coat tighter around her body. The next morning, the building felt like a different place. Without the holding company's funding, the lobby lost its luxury. Suppliers stopped delivering expensive flowers, and the kitchen had to improvise simpler menus. Emily spent hours adjusting budgets, reassigning cleaning products, talking with the team. "Rose, can you cover the night shift?" "Of course, Emily," Rose replied, steady. "Josh, I need you to double-check the reservations. Let's prioritize families who can pay up front." "Got it." Michael watched all of it with respect. Emily was no longer just the head housekeeper. She was the true leader. At the end of the day, he found her sitting on a break-room stool, going through stacks of receipts. "You never stop, do you?" he asked, smiling tiredly. Emily looked up at him, exhausted but confident. "I can't stop, Michael. Every mistake I make costs someone their job," he sighed, pulling up a chair. "Let me help." "You want to check receipts?" she teased, laughing weakly. "Who would have thought?" Michael grinned. "The guy who managed billions counting soap bars." Emily took a deep breath, staring at the paperwork. "Michael, I know this is hard for you." He looked at her, serious. "Actually, it's not that hard. What was hard was living in a bubble where no one really cared." She was touched. "You've changed." "So have you," he replied softly. "You seem even stronger now." Emily gave a shy smile. "Honestly, I'm scared every single day." "But you keep going anyway," Michael added. "That's courage." Across the break room, Sophie and Grace were playing with Rose, stacking plastic cups like little castles. "Mummy, can we live here forever?" Grace asked excitedly. Emily stroked her daughter's hair. "As long as there are good people here, yes." Michael watched the scene and felt something warm inside, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. Family. The following week, the first guests of the new hotel began to arrive, less demanding, but more genuine. Simple families, workers who just needed a dignified place to stay. Emily and her team made sure to greet them by name, smiling, offering small, caring gestures. One evening, Michael was walking through the halls when he heard someone thank Emily loudly at the front desk. "Thank you, Miss Emily. God bless you." He stopped, deeply moved, and watched Emily tidying up the reception. "You changed everything, Emily," he said, coming closer. "I didn't do it alone." "Yes, you did," Michael insisted. "I just followed you." Emily felt a shiver run through her. She wasn't used to being recognized like that. "Michael, She hesitated, her heart racing. He lightly touched her hand. "I know. You don't have to say anything." For a moment, the world seemed to pause. It was just the two of them, the lobby lights, the distant voices of children. A quiet moment, but full of promises. But that calm wouldn't last long. A new threat was on its way, ready to test every bit of trust they had built. Do you also believe that starting over can be beautiful, even if it hurts? Leave a comment and subscribe so you don't miss the next emotional chapter. The days that followed felt like a quiet miracle. The hotel, simpler but running, was thriving. Guests praised the warm, personal service, and the team felt motivated. Emily moved through the hallways as if she had belonged there her whole life, guiding, smiling, tending to every detail. Michael watched her from a distance, in awe. Sometimes he wondered how he had lived so many years without that spark of humanity around him. But one afternoon his phone rang, dragging back ghosts he thought he'd buried. It was Hartman, the chairman of the board, on the other end. "Michael, can we talk?" "I have nothing to discuss with you anymore," he replied firmly. "Don't be foolish," Hartman shot back, cold as ice. "Your family is offering you a chance. Take back your seat as president and everything goes back to normal. You'll have full access to funding again." Michael took a deep breath, heart pounding. "And the price?" "Cut half the staff, modernize operations, automate the service, what you should have done from the start." Michael closed his eyes, feeling a tightness in his chest. Emily, Sophie, Grace, the entire team. They'd lose everything if he agreed. "I can't." "You'd turn down billions for a handful of cleaners," Hartman sneered. Michael clenched his jaw, steady. "Yes, I'll turn it down." And he hung up, hands trembling. Later, Emily stepped into the makeshift office and found Michael staring blankly out the window. "Michael, what happened?" It took him a moment to answer, his voice breaking. They tried to buy me back." Emily bit her lip, anxious. "And what did you say?" Michael looked at her, more vulnerable than ever. "I said no." Her heart warmed. "Are you sure?" "The only thing I'm sure of is that you're all worth more than any amount of money." Emily stepped closer, tears in her eyes. "And why does this feel like a dream?" "Because it almost is," he admitted, "but it's a dream that only makes sense if you're here with me." That night, they sat together in the staff cafeteria, sharing a simple coffee. Sophie and Grace dozed in a corner, worn out from playing. "When I think that just a month ago I couldn't even buy bread for my daughters," Emily said, voice shaking. Michael took her hand gently. "And now they have more than bread. They have you." Emily let the tears fall. "I'm so afraid it will all fall apart." "So am I," Michael confessed, surprising her. "But if it does, we'll start over again. Together." Outside, snow began to fall once more, covering the sidewalks like a white blanket. Emily looked at her daughters and then at Michael, realizing that somehow, despite everything, she had found something she'd never dared to dream of: security. But fate wasn't finished yet. The next day, Hartman showed up in person, storming into the hotel lobby like a general invading enemy territory. "Michael, can I have a word in private?" he asked with forced politeness. Emily watched from a distance, alert. Hartman didn't waste time. The offer still stands, but it expires in 48 hours. Michael took a deep breath. You already heard my answer. Think it over, Hartman warned in a chilling tone, or you'll ruin everything. Emily walked over as soon as Hartman left. He won't give up, will he? Michael shook his head. No. And you? She asked, steady. Michael met her gaze with determination. I won't give up either. But Emily knew deep down that the battle was only beginning, and the greatest test of their trust and love was still to come. 2 days later, the hotel was thick with tension. Every employee felt the weight of Hartman's deadline. Emily barely slept, poring over spreadsheets, motivating the team, keeping an eye on every detail. Michael looked exhausted, but refused to give in. On that freezing night, Emily stepped into the tiny office and found Michael sitting there, his face buried in his hands. He looked broken. "Michael!" she called softly. He lifted his eyes, vulnerable. I'm scared, Emily." She came closer and sat beside him. "Scared of what? Of ruining your lives, of not being able to hold this dream together." Emily took a deep breath and held his hand. "You haven't ruined anything. You saved us." Michael let out a shaky laugh. "Saved you? They're trying to take everything back." "But you gave us more than a hotel," Emily insisted, steady. "You gave us dignity. No one can take that away." The next day, Hartman showed up once again. Arrogantly, he strode through the lobby full of regular guests, families, workers, smiling tourists. "Michael, last chance," he said, laying a contract on the counter. "Sign now, and forget this fantasy of a cheap people's hotel." Michael took a deep breath, with Emily at his side, steady as a pillar. "I won't sell." "You'll regret it." "Maybe," Michael replied, meeting his stare, "but at least I'll be able to look in the mirror." Hartman stormed out, slamming the glass door behind him. Emily let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "You really said no." Michael smiled, relieved. "I said no." Emily was overcome, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You saved all of us." Michael gently wiped away one of her tears with his thumb. "And you saved my soul, Emily." That weekend, the hotel transformed. Word of mouth from satisfied guests filled every room. Online reviews overflowed with praise. Michael's human hotel became news. The staff grew confident, and Emily became their inspiration. Sophie and Grace played in the lobby, smiling at everyone like two little princesses. Emily watched them, her heart overflowing. Michael came to stand next to her, proud. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Liar," Emily teased, laughing. "You've always been good." "Only with numbers," he laughed. "But you taught me how to be good with people." That night, Michael gathered everyone in the hotel restaurant. Staff, guests, even suppliers came together to celebrate. The room pulsed with joy. He took the microphone, voice steady. "Today, we don't just celebrate a successful business. We celebrate courage. We celebrate empathy. We celebrate hope." Applause thundered through the room. Emily cried, holding her daughter's hands tight. Then, suddenly, Michael turned to her, his gaze intense in front of everyone. "Emily?" She felt her breath catch. "Michael?" He knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Emily Carter, would you become my wife, and the official mother of these two princesses I admire so much?" A magical silence fell over the entire room. Emily covered her mouth in shock. Sophie and Grace ran over, hugging her legs, crying. "Mommy, say yes!" Emily, trembling, looked at Michael, eyes full of tears. I say yes." The room erupted in cheers. Michael stood up and hugged her tight, kissing her forehead, like he was thanking the universe itself. Sophie and Grace jumped around them, laughing and crying at the same time. Years later, the hotel grew even more successful. Michael and Emily became not just business partners, but partners in life. Sophie and Grace grew up confident, proud of the mother who had changed their destiny. One spring afternoon, sitting in the hotel garden, Michael looked at Emily as the girls ran through the grass. "Do you remember when you didn't even have money for bread?" She smiled, emotional. "I remember, and I thank God for that day." Michael took her hand. "Me too, because that was the day I found my family." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, feeling at peace. There, in the heart of Boston, a humble mother who once couldn't afford bread saved the soul of a lost man, and together they built the greatest treasure of all: true love. If this story touched you, leave a heart in the comments, share your thoughts about the power of generosity, and help inspire others. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more emotional stories like this one.